The power of the spoken word is a double-edged sword. Every idle complaint, every whispered doubt, every grumble of dissatisfaction sends out vibrations that build walls where you long for doors. Many people live their whole lives creating blockages with their tongues, never realizing that silence holds the key to freedom. When you shut up, you do not surrender your strength, you awaken it. For in silence, the spirit moves swiftly. In silence, the universe speaks the loudest. Words are seeds, and they never fail to take root. A careless phrase, a sharp criticism, a negative prediction, all spring forth in due season. Some look at their life and ask, why do these troubles follow me? Yet they are only harvesting the garden they themselves planted. The moment you guard your lips, you change the soil of your existence. When you stop scattering weeds, you make room for roses. Life responds to expectancy, not to complaint. The one who declares, nothing good ever happens to me, will find their words fulfilled. The one who holds their peace, who restrains the urge to complain, who waits in faith, such a one makes space for miracles. Silence is not weakness, silence is a decree. To be still is to step aside and let the higher law rearrange circumstances in your favor. The tongue is small, but it governs the entire ship. A careless word can steer your life toward storms, but the bridled tongue steers you into calm waters. When you stop feeding energy to worry, when you refuse to speak defeat, you place your destiny back on course. Your silence is not emptiness, it is alignment. Many wonder why their prayers seem unanswered. Yet how can prayers rise when immediately after, words of doubt cancel them out? The lips bless in one breath and curse in the next, and the result is confusion. But when you quiet the tongue, you cut off the stream of contradiction. You allow your inner decree. It is done. To echo without interference, to shut up, is not mere muteness, it is mastery. It is the refusal to speak against yourself, against your good, against your dreams. It is to stop narrating the nightmare and allow the dream to unfold. It is to hush the constant commentary of fear and open the channel of faith. Watch then as life bends toward you. The moment you step into silence, forces unseen begin their work. Opportunities gather. Solutions assemble. Doors prepare to open. The world which once seemed hostile, now conspires to bless you. For life is but a mirror, reflecting what you project. Remove the words of resistance, and the mirror clears. You will see harmony, order, and abundance rushing toward you. When you stop announcing the problem dissolves. When you stop rehearsing defeat, victory appears. When you stop fueling chaos with your lips, peace rises like the dawn. Shut up, therefore, and watch. Watch your life rearrange itself with divine precision. Watch the harvest of silence bring forth abundance. Watch the invisible law work without obstruction. Words are seeds, silence stops planting weeds. Every syllable that falls from the lips carries power. Whether for construction or destruction, many people live unaware that every casual remark, every sarcastic comment, every repetition of negativity is sowing into the invisible soil of their own destiny. Life does not distinguish between what you meant lightly and what you meant deeply. Life simply takes the vibration of your words, plants them, and waits for their harvest. When you say, I can't, that seed takes root. When you declare, I never have enough, that too plants itself firmly in your garden. The ground of the subconscious and the universal law does not argue with you. It only produces after your decree. To understand this is to realize why silence is golden. Each time you feel the impulse to complain, to criticize, or to forecast doom, you are preparing weeds to choke out the growth of your good. The weeds do not appear instantly, they come subtly, growing quietly until one day you find your plans tangled, your opportunities blocked, your health diminished, your peace disturbed. Many ask, why does this keep happening to me? The answer lies not in the stars, not in the cruelty of fate, but in the words spoken carelessly day after day. To shut the lips when tempted to sow doubt is to protect the soil of your destiny. Words are not idle. The one who says, I am always tired, invites fatigue to settle in. The one who says, people never treat me right, commands the world to echo their statement back in endless mirrors of experience. The tongue is a planter, scattering seeds into the fertile ground of spirit, and spirit never fails to bring forth fruit after its kind. If you are weary of disappointment, silence the declarations that feed it. If you long for prosperity, stop affirming lack with every conversation. If you desire love, cease speaking rejection. In silence, weeds find no new ground and the soil rests, awaiting a higher command. Every complaint is a seed that grows into more things to complain about. Every story of hardship told over and over again is a vine that spreads its roots deeper, wrapping around the life you seek to live. Silence is not weakness, it is refusal. It is the firm no to negativity that seeks to flow from the lips and multiply itself. When you choose silence, you are not suppressing your truth. You are protecting your field. You are guarding the energy of your future harvest. There is a sacred economy to words. Just as a farmer would never scatter precious grain without purpose, so too should the wise never cast words idly. A single phrase of faith, repeated in confidence, can produce a forest of blessings. A careless grumble, repeated in habit, can produce thorns. To withdraw from the impulse to speak every fleeting thought is to take dominion over your garden. You become deliberate. You choose to plant only what you wish to reap. The one who is quick to speak often finds themselves trapped by their own utterances. They say, "I am unlucky," and life responds, "As you will." They declare, "I never get ahead," and life obliges, reinforcing the decree. But the one who is slow to speak, who holds silence instead of scattering weeds, creates space for transformation. In the pause, in the restraint, there is wisdom. It is in the quiet that higher thoughts emerge. It is in the quiet that divine inspiration has room to breathe. Seeds do not need noise to grow, and so it is with words. Once planted, they germinate whether you remember them or not. This is why the discipline of silence is so powerful. Every withheld complaint is a weed unplanted. Every unsaid criticism is a thorn kept out of the soil. Every restrained prediction of failure is an opening for success to flourish. The mouth may itch to speak against circumstances, but silence refuses to hand power to the negative. In that refusal lies strength. Life is generous in its response. If you fill the soil of your mind with gratitude, you reap joy. If you saturate it with bitterness, you reap sorrow. But if you refuse to plant at all until you are clear, then you keep your garden clean. Many do not realize that silence is itself a command. It is a statement that says, "I will not give this power." It is the invisible hand pulling up weeds before they touch the ground. It is the gardener's wisdom to leave the earth untouched rather than litter it with useless seeds. In conversations, it is easy to join the chorus of complaints. Friends lament about money, and the impulse is to add your own story of lack. Coworkers grumble about the boss, and the instinct is to contribute your share of negativity. But in doing so, you plant their weeds in your field. Their words pass into your subconscious, and your agreement gives them strength. Silence is your shield. Silence is the refusal to participate in collective planting of thorns. By staying quiet, you keep your field pure, even when others scatter weeds recklessly around their own. The discipline is subtle but profound. A moment of silence instead of a careless retort changes the outcome. A withheld story of misfortune keeps the soil clear for fortune to appear. A refusal to declare defeat keeps the field ready for victory. In silence, you step away from the urge to narrate every shadow. You create space for light. The law of cause and effect does not pause. It does not overlook the little words spoken without thought. Even in jest, the seeds fall. The soil does not laugh, it produces. That is why silence is power. Better to say nothing than to sow what will later require painful uprooting. Better to hold the tongue than to regret the harvest. Each unspoken weed is a gift to yourself, a mercy granted to your own future. Complaints block blessings, silence clears the path. Each time a complaint leaves the lips, it builds an invisible wall between you and the good that is already reaching for you. The law of life is generous. It is always seeking to deliver what belongs to you, but complaints act as a shield that turns away the very things you long for. To complain is to say to the universe, I do not trust, I do not believe, I do not expect better. And the universe, reflecting faithfully, answers with circumstances that mirror that vibration. Complaints are magnets for more of the same. They rehearse the past, they magnify the obstacle, and they keep the mind locked on what is missing instead of what is possible. Blessings often come quietly, like a whisper, like a breeze carrying the fragrance of opportunity, but the noise of complaint drowns them out. A person who constantly speaks of what is wrong cannot hear what is right. Their attention is fixed upon the lack, and life expands whatever is given attention. The one who is always saying, this never works for me, nothing changes, everything is against me, has unknowingly set up a guard at the door of their blessings, turning them back before they arrive. Complaints are not harmless expressions of mood, they are decrees that shape reality. Every complaint sends out a signal, and that signal attracts its own kind. Silence, on the other hand, is open space. Silence is the cleared path where blessings may travel unhindered. When you choose silence instead of complaint, you do not deny what is happening. You simply refuse to give it power. You refuse to reinforce the negative by feeding it with more words. Words are fuel, and every complaint is fuel poured onto the fire of difficulty. Silence starves the fire. Silence says, I will not add to this. I will not multiply this. I will not make this bigger than it already is. In that refusal lies freedom. The human tendency is to narrate suffering, to repeat it to others, to discuss it in detail, to linger on it until it becomes the only story told. Yet every retelling engraves the trouble deeper into the subconscious, and the subconscious, being creative, builds more of it. Complaints reinforce the problem's permanence, while silence loosens its grip. In silence, the problem withers for lack of attention. Silence allows the possibility of a different story to rise up. When the lips are closed, the heart can begin to hear the quiet assurance of a solution. A complaint is never neutral. It drags the energy downward, and it darkens the atmosphere of a room, of a home, of a workplace. It spreads quickly, like a contagion, multiplying as others join in. One person speaks of how bad the day is, another adds their own frustration, and soon the air is heavy with discouragement. Each participant has agreed to block their blessings together. But silence stops the chain. Silence refuses to pass along the contagion. Silence does not cooperate with the downward pull. Silence is not passive. It is an active alignment with trust. To remain silent when the urge to complain rises is to say inwardly, something greater is working here. I do not yet see the good, but I know it is forming. I will not block its way with my words. That silence clears the space for blessings to flow. Blessings that have been circling, waiting for an opening. The silence is the opening. The silence is the unlocked gate through which abundance, peace, and opportunity enter. Complaints, no matter how justified they may seem, tie you to the condition you are describing. You may say, I only speak the truth, I am only saying how it is. But by declaring how it is, you bind yourself to how it is. The law of life cannot bring you beyond what you insist upon. If you declare, I am stuck, the law obeys. If you say, I never get what I want, the law fulfills your decree. The words may feel like a release, a way of venting, but in reality, they are anchors. They secure the very state you wish to escape. Silence cuts the rope. Silence lifts the anchor. Silence frees the ship to move again. Life is always moving toward greater good, but complaints turn the vessel in circles. The one who chooses silence allows the tide to carry them forward. Silence creates an openness where new ideas can arrive, where new doors can be noticed. Complaints blind the eyes to opportunity, because the mind is too busy confirming its own misery. Silence sharpens the perception, quiets the noise, and makes it possible to recognize the answer when it appears. Blessings often come disguised, wrapped in ordinary moments, hidden within small chances, concealed in what looks at first like delay. The complaining tongue rejects them, labeling them as disappointments before they have revealed their gift. But the silent tongue waits, and in waiting, it receives. The silent heart recognizes that not every blessing wears the costume of joy at first. Some blessings arrive as lessons, as redirections, as pauses that prepare the way. Complaint resists them, silence welcomes them. Complaint shuts the door, silence leaves it open. The path is always being cleared for those who do not resist it with their words. The universe leans toward generosity. Life longs to overflow with good. But when the tongue constantly speaks lack, it becomes as though stones are being thrown into the stream, blocking its flow. Silence removes the stones. Silence restores the current. The good that seemed delayed, the opportunities that seemed withheld, the peace that seemed absent. Suddenly they rush forward, no longer obstructed. Complaints block blessings because they declare that blessings do not exist. They say, "There is nothing good for me." And life, obedient, mirrors back the emptiness. But silence does not argue with what is wrong. Silence refuses to declare defeat. Silence holds space for what is right to show itself. Complaints argue against your own prosperity. Silence gives consent to it. Complaints are the language of fear. Silence is the language of faith. The path is cleared not by struggle, not by effort, but by the absence of resistance. Complaints are resistance, they push against the flow. Silence relaxes into trust, and in trust the blessings flow. Silence is the posture of receptivity, the fertile soil into which life can drop its gifts. In silence, you step aside and allow the higher order to work without interference. In silence, the energy of complaint is transmuted into expectancy, and expectancy, unspoken yet powerful, draws forth the very things complaint has kept away. The tongue steers destiny. Master it, master life. Every word that passes from your lips is a rudder directing the course of your journey. It may seem small, insignificant, tossed into the air and forgotten, but words never vanish. They imprint themselves upon the mind. They send vibrations into the unseen. They call forth experiences that echo their tone. A ship is massive, yet it obeys the slightest turn of a rudder. So it is with life, vast circumstances, countless details, immeasurable forces, all moving in response to the tiny yet commanding movements of the tongue. People often believe they are victims of chance, tossed about by luck or fate. Yet most of what they experience has been decreed by their own words. Every declaration is a command issued to the subconscious and to the universe. Speak of failure, and you begin the journey toward it. Speak of lack, and you navigate into barren waters. Speak of fear, and you sail directly into storms. The rudder does not discriminate, it obeys. And so, many steer themselves unknowingly into hardship, simply because they never learned to guide their tongue. To master the tongue is to master the unseen steering wheel of destiny. Control over words is control over direction. The one who disciplines their speech does not need to force life, because the very words spoken in alignment with truth and expectancy set the course toward abundance. To say, "I am guided," "I am provided for," "I am strong," is not empty affirmation but a directive issued to the current of life. Those words set a new heading. They shift the winds. They align circumstances in unseen ways. The danger lies in carelessness. A thoughtless phrase repeated day after day slowly but surely alters the course of the voyage. One who says, "I always mess things up," may laugh as though it means little, yet those words cut deep furrows in the subconscious. Eventually the subconscious complies, arranging situations that prove the declaration true. The tongue has steered the ship into waters of constant failure, and the speaker wonders why misfortune seems to follow. The answer lies not in mystery but in mastery, or the lack of it. The tongue holds creative fire. It shapes reality through vibration. Even in silence of thought, the inner tongue whispers, and those whispers carry weight. To master the tongue is not merely to avoid careless speech outwardly, but to train the inner dialogue as well. How often do people say within themselves, "I cannot do this," or "This will never work out"? Those inner murmurs are rudders too, steering the ship quietly but effectively. Life listens not only to shouted decrees but also to whispered doubts. Mastery of the tongue is therefore mastery of focus. It requires awareness, vigilance, and intention. To speak with mastery is to refuse to narrate the negative. It is to bridle the instinct to complain, to gossip, to prophesy defeat. It is to choose words that affirm life, health, peace, and success, not because circumstances already show them, but because words create the path for them to appear. The rudder must be set before the ship can arrive at its destination. Many think they are being practical when they speak of lack or limitation. They believe they are simply stating facts. Yet to repeat those facts endlessly is to anchor oneself to them. A ship cannot move forward while tied to the dock. To declare, "This is how it is. This is all I have. This is all I can do," is to tighten the ropes. Mastery of the tongue cuts them loose. It says, "More is possible. Greater is coming. My good is unfolding." Those words set a new course, releasing the vessel to move toward what has been prepared. Destiny is not a fixed line carved in stone. It bends, shifts, and reshapes itself according to the guidance of the tongue. Lives have been transformed not by sudden miracles, but by consistent mastery of words. The one who replaces defeat with victory, sickness with health, fear with courage, lack with abundance, gradually shifts the rudder, and though the ship does not turn instantly, it does turn surely. Over time, the new course becomes visible, and the destination once thought unreachable becomes reality. The tongue is both creative and destructive. Fire can warm or it can burn, water can nourish or it can drown, and words can lift or they can shatter. Mastery is the choice of direction. With every phrase you decide, do I steer toward life or toward death, toward growth or toward decay, toward freedom or toward bondage? Words plant themselves deeply, and destiny unfolds according to their command. There is no neutrality. To leave the tongue undisciplined is to allow the ship to drift aimlessly, tossed by every wind of circumstance. To master it is to become captain of your fate. The one who guards their words lives deliberately. They do not speak until their tongue aligns with their vision. They do not repeat every thought that arises. They pause, they choose, they direct. Each sentence becomes an act of navigation, each declaration a turning of the wheel. They do not waste power on idle negativity. They understand that every utterance is seed, and every seed has a harvest. To master the tongue is to sow only what you wish to reap. This mastery is not attained in a day. It is a discipline, a practice, a daily awareness. At first, the tongue may stumble, releasing old habits of complaint, of fear, of doubt. But with persistence, new habits form. Words of faith replace words of worry. Words of expectancy replace words of resignation. Gradually the ship of life shifts its course, and the evidence begins to appear. Opportunities open. Health strengthens, relationships harmonize, doors that seemed locked swing wide. The outer world adjusts to the inner decree, for the tongue has spoken, and destiny has obeyed. The tongue steers destiny, master it, master life. Silence aligns you with unseen forces of good. Beneath the noise of the world, there is a constant movement of higher law, a current always pulling toward harmony, abundance, and order. Yet most people drown out its guidance with ceaseless chatter, with anxious conversations, with endless rehearsals of fear and failure. When the tongue is always busy declaring what is wrong, it leaves no space for the whisper of what is right. Silence is not emptiness. It is receptivity. It is the posture of listening. It is the tuning of the soul to the frequency of the unseen, where answers are already prepared, where provision is already complete, where the path is already clear. The forces of good move in silence because they do not compete. They do not shout over fear. They do not wrestle with worry. They wait for the still moment when the mind grows quiet and the lips are closed. That is when inspiration arrives like a flash. That is when intuition stirs, when sudden clarity breaks through confusion, when peace replaces panic. But these cannot be heard in the clamor of complaints or in the constant repetition of obstacles. Only silence allows them to surface. When one withdraws from the urge to speak against circumstances, they create a channel. Silence is that open channel. It is as if the noise of doubt and negativity builds a wall, and silence tears the wall down. Behind the wall, blessings were always waiting. Behind the wall, solutions were always present. Silence removes the obstruction so the unseen forces can flow unhindered into experience. Silence is not inactivity, it is alignment. It is the invisible agreement that says, I allow good to move, I allow life to work. I will not interfere with endless words of contradiction. When you choose silence instead of complaint, you harmonize with the rhythm of life. You step into the stream instead of splashing against it. The current then carries you forward with effortless strength. Every force in the universe responds to vibration, and words carry vibration. The vibration of complaint pulls toward chaos. The vibration of fear pulls toward delay. The vibration of anger pulls toward conflict. But silence vibrates differently. Silence is not void. It is charged. It hums with expectancy. It listens instead of resists. It yields instead of struggles. And because it yields, it connects with the subtle yet powerful current of unseen good, which is always flowing, always seeking to manifest. In silence the mind rests, and in rest it becomes fertile. Ideas that once seemed hidden emerge. Solutions that were obscured by noise suddenly present themselves. The higher self, the divine wisdom, the inner guidance, all of these require stillness to be heard. They are drowned out by endless repetition of problems. But in silence they rise. They speak clearly, not in thunder, but in assurance, in knowing, in direction. Those who live in constant speech often say they do not hear guidance, that they cannot find clarity, that blessings never reach them. But they do not realize they are talking over the very voice they seek. The guidance is not absent, it is simply drowned. When lips are closed, when the mind is quieted, when the inner dialogue softens into silence, the voice of unseen forces can finally be heard, and that voice always directs toward good. Silence also shields. In silence you refuse to agree with fear spoken around you. Others may complain, criticize, predict doom, but when you remain silent, you do not join their decree. Their words do not take root in your garden. Silence protects your field. It creates a barrier against the contagion of negativity. Instead of adding your voice to the chorus of defeat, silence holds its own space, and that space becomes fertile ground for good alone. Silence is strength disguised. It may appear as if you are doing nothing, but in truth you are doing the greatest work, allowing unseen forces to do what your words of worry could never accomplish. Silence is the removal of resistance. It is stepping aside so the law can move. The law is always at work, but it is hindered when you speak against it. Every declaration of impossibility delays the possible. Every confession of lack delays abundance. But silence does not resist. Silence allows. Silence aligns. The alignment is subtle but undeniable. Circumstances begin to shift. People appear at the right time. Opportunities unfold unexpectedly. Answers arrive without effort. None of this is coincidence. It is the fruit of alignment. The unseen forces of good were always moving, but in silence you gave them room to enter. You did not block them with words of fear. You did not cancel them with contradictions. You held the space, and in that space they manifested. Silence is also discipline. It requires strength to withhold complaint when every impulse urges you to speak it. It requires awareness to catch the tongue before it scatters words of defeat. But every time you choose silence over negativity, you deepen your alignment. You train the tongue to obey the higher order rather than the lower impulse. In doing so, you strengthen your connection with the unseen forces that carry you toward your destiny. To align with unseen good is to recognize that not all movement is visible. Just as seeds sprout underground before breaking the surface, so too do blessings often grow in silence before they appear in form. Silence honors this unseen process. It does not dig up the seed with anxious words. It waits, it trusts, it holds stillness. And in that stillness, growth continues unhindered. Every tradition of wisdom has honored silence as a doorway. It is the space between thoughts where clarity is found, the pause between breaths where presence is felt, the gap between words where truth lives. In silence you step beyond the limited self and touch the vastness of the unseen. And the unseen is always good, always abundant, always ready to pour itself into form if only given space. Silence aligns you with unseen forces of good because silence is harmony. It refuses to clash with life, it refuses to argue with what is, it refuses to resist with negativity. Instead, it opens, it softens, it waits. And in that openness, the invisible order of the universe moves freely, arranging, guiding, blessing, and fulfilling. Stop narrating the problem. Watch the solution appear. The mind has a deep tendency to describe, repeat, and rehearse everything that seems wrong. It wants to analyze the difficulty from every angle, to tell the story of failure again and again, to seek comfort in the retelling of pain. Yet every narration of the problem gives it new life, new energy, new strength. The more the problem is spoken, the more deeply it engraves itself in the mind, and the more forcefully it shapes reality. Words are not harmless descriptions. They are commands. Each time you narrate the problem, you decree that the problem is your truth. Each time you rehearse the obstacle, you tell life, "This is what I want more of." To stop narrating is to stop feeding. Problems do not grow on their own. They require attention. They require language. They require energy. When you withdraw these, they shrink. When you stop announcing them to yourself and to others, you pull the plug on their power source. The silence that follows is not weakness. It is the space where solutions take form. For as long as you are filling the air with the story of the obstacle, there is no room for the story of the answer. The constant narration blocks the arrival of the new. The mind may protest, insisting that narration is necessary. It will say, "I need to talk about this. I need to explain. I need to be heard," and there is truth in expression. But expression quickly becomes entrapment when it circles endlessly around the same theme. At some point, telling the story becomes building the prison. Each retelling adds another bar. Soon the problem is no longer just an event but an identity. You are no longer facing a difficulty. You have become the person who lives in difficulty. The narration cements the problem as part of your being. The moment you stop narrating, you begin to loosen the cement. You begin to separate yourself from the difficulty. You are no longer the one who repeats it, who carries it, who defines yourself by it. You are the one who allows space for something else. And in that space, the solution, which was always hovering nearby, begins to surface. Solutions are delicate. They require quiet. They cannot be heard above the noise of constant complaint. They whisper in silence. They arrive in stillness. They come when the story of the problem is no longer filling the air. Every problem carries within it the seed of its own solution. But to discover it, one must stop staring at the shell. Narration is staring at the shell, describing its hardness, its weight, its color, its flaws. Silence cracks it open. Silence allows the seed to sprout. Narration keeps the attention bound to what is wrong. Silence shifts attention to what might unfold. Attention is the most powerful currency you hold. Where you give it, life expands. To stop narrating the problem is to withdraw attention from the barren soil and place it in the fertile ground where new answers can grow. The habit of narrating problems is not only personal but collective. Families, workplaces, and entire societies sometimes gather around the ritual of complaint, repeating endlessly what is broken, what is missing, what is unjust. These conversations feel real, they feel bonding, but they chain the group to the very conditions they despise. No fresh possibility can emerge in a room filled with the echo of the same old problem. Yet a single choice to stop narrating shifts the atmosphere. One silence breaks the chain. One refusal to repeat the old story makes space for a new chapter to begin. It is not denial to stop narrating. Denial is resistance, but silence is surrender. Denial says, "This problem does not exist," while silence says, "This problem will not dominate my words." Denial fights the problem, but silence disarms it. Denial binds energy in argument, but silence frees energy for creativity. Silence does not pretend the difficulty is not there. It simply refuses to exalt it through endless repetition. That refusal changes everything. When the problem is no longer narrated, the mind is free to listen for guidance. Intuition rises, ideas come. Clarity dawns. The solution often appears not in dramatic revelation, but in subtle direction. A thought to call someone, an urge to try a new path, a shift in perception that reframes the entire situation. These are drowned out when the lips are busy repeating what is wrong. But in silence, they grow louder, clearer, more insistent. The solution was always present, but the noise of narration kept it hidden. The universe bends to the language of faith, not fear. Narrating the problem is the language of fear. It tells life, I believe in this obstacle more than in the possibility of its resolution. But silence is the language of faith. It says, without words, I trust that the answer is forming. I trust that unseen forces are arranging the way. I trust that good is moving even now. That trust clears the vision, and the solution becomes visible. The more one narrates the problem, the more fixed the problem becomes. The more one stops, the more fluid it becomes, and in fluidity, it shifts. Problems are not as solid as they appear. They are patterns of thought and energy, and patterns can change the moment you stop reinforcing them. Narration is reinforcement. Silence is release. Release allows the form to dissolve and reform. Release opens the way for a higher pattern to emerge. To stop narrating is also to break agreement with others who are invested in the problem. Often people bond over shared complaints, repeating the same difficulties together. This creates collective energy that strengthens the problem's hold. Refusing to narrate does not isolate you, it liberates you. It pulls your energy out of the cycle of shared complaint and places it into alignment with possibility. Others may continue their narration, but you step aside, and in that stepping aside, you open yourself to solutions that they cannot yet see. Solutions often appear in silence because silence is fertile ground. When the soil is not cluttered with weeds of constant narration, seeds of inspiration can sprout. They grow quietly, often unnoticed at first, until suddenly the answer stands clear, undeniable, ready to be acted upon. This clarity is not manufactured by force but revealed by stillness. You did not invent the solution, you allowed it. You did not struggle it into being. You made space for it by stopping the endless narration of the problem. The discipline is not easy. The tongue longs to speak, the mind longs to repeat, the emotions long to vent. But each time you resist, each time you withhold the narration, you weaken the grip of the problem. Each silence is a withdrawal of power from what holds you back. Each pause is a seed planted for the appearance of the answer. Over time, the practice becomes natural. The lips no longer itch to retell the same old story. The mind no longer clings to the same old identity. And as narration fades, solutions multiply.